All right, so now I'm going to talk about the approach that we take when creating dashboards. So it's really about asking the right questions. Understand what is the objective of this dashboard. Who's really asking for this to happen? What's the audience of this dashboard? Who is going to be using this? What is their mission with this dashboard? Obviously, it's not just to make your data look pretty. They want to make sure that there's change happening for the better. Next, what are the metrics that the business is most interested in? What are the KPIs that help push them forward? What helps them measure what success is within their organization? And lastly, what are the special requirements? They might have particular branding they want to use. Maybe there's security considerations. You want to make sure your data is secure, obviously, so making sure that all that is something you're asking the client about. You don't want to just go in there and make assumptions. And here are some sample questions that I broke out here for each of the different areas. So define what success looks like with the client so you're both on the same page. Ask them, what questions should this dashboard be answering for me? I don't want to have to go somewhere else for this information. What is it that we can now put on this dashboard to take care of that for me? How granular does this dashboard need to be? Is it going to be a couple of pie charts and bar charts with big numbers showing, are we up or down month over month? Or is it something where they actually want to see row level data, much like an Excel table? So it's really understanding how granular of information you want to display. Is it summary or is it really detailed? Understand what the audience's typical day is like. This will help them think about things that they do and help you craft the solution for the client. Understand what the primary metrics and KPIs are. This should be top of mind for all of them. And really dig into how they're calculated. A lot of clients have very, very strict business rules around the way things are calculated. There might be some data that's in one system and not in the other. So understanding how all that connects together is really important as well. What type of filtering is needed? Is this going to be a dashboard with no filters? Or are you going to filter things in the background? Or do you want it to be interactive? So figure out how the business really wants to slice through that data to get the most benefit from the dashboard. And also, you don't want to have a dashboard that is looking 10 years in the past. If they're making decisions, they want to use data that's fresh and relevant. So understand, how much history they really need. And if they want it, it's a nice to have. Perhaps put it on like a secondary dashboard that goes more into the weeds of historical data and have another dashboard that's just more forward-looking. Regarding special requirements, a lot of companies, they'll have a marketing team or branding team. Reach out to them, see what sort of fonts and colors, browse their website, understand the color palettes that they use within their branding, and incorporate that into your dashboard. Because nothing looks worse than an out-of-the-box Tableau dashboard with the blue and the orange. If you really make it custom to the client, that resonates with them, and it makes them want to use it that much more. There'll be security considerations. Can different departments not see other departments' data? Is there like a managerial hierarchy where we shouldn't be seeing certain data, whereas other teams can? So understand that, and you can build that into your Tableau workbook using row-level security. And finally, what's the final presentation layer? Is it going to be something that gets printed out and put on an executive's desk? Because if that's the case, you want to make sure that you have everything visible on your dashboard. Obviously, you're not going to be using tooltips if it's in print. And also, if it's an iPad, you want to make sure that you size everything appropriately and you test for the various mediums that the dashboard will be presented on. So I like to use this technique called requirements visualization. Back in the day, when companies needed a report, they went to IT, they gave them, this is what we need. We need these metrics. And then they throw it over the wall. And 3 months later, they come back with this report. And the business is like, this isn't what we wanted. So going forward, what we've decided to do is be more visual about it. Have purpose in what you're doing. So we start out actually wireframing with the client in the room and walking them through what that perfect future state dashboard looks like. We don't know whether or not all the data is going to be accessible to make this, actually happen, but at least it gets those juices flowing in their brains and helps them piece together, oh, maybe we can pull together a couple $1 million to pull this data that we've never pulled before because this information is so important. So it allows them to see what the art of the possible is when using dashboards. So on the bottom left here, you can see this tool is called Balsamiq. It's BALSAMIQ. And it's a very black and white. It's not meant to look like it's a professional dashboard, but it allows you to quickly sketch out with a client, what are you most interested in? What are the KPIs you want to measure against? What do you want to trend? What sort of dimensions do you really want to have on a dashboard? So what we'll do is we'll go through the summary level dashboard, which is the highest level. Then we'll move one level down, which dives into perhaps a couple of these charts in more detail. And then finally, we'll get to like a detailed dashboard where it's really granular information down to the row. And I'll walk you through a couple of these demos as well. So we start out with that wireframe, and then we actually build it in Tableau. And more often than not, data takes a long time to get. So we'll use different tools like Mockaroo.com to spin up a mock data set and plug that data set into Tableau. So what you're seeing in the bottom right there is actually a mock data set. It's not real data, but it at least allows the Tableau developer to put something out there and let folks start interacting with it. And you'll find that that's when the most valuable feedback comes. When they actually see it live in a dashboard, they're like, oh, okay, maybe I didn't want to see it this way. Even though it looked good in the wireframe, when they're actually using it and analyzing data using Tableau, they start to think about other ways of using the tool. So it's really, really impactful to put out visuals and prototype for the business, because otherwise, you're just writing down on a piece of paper, oh yeah, okay, the old school way, we're taking out all the requirements, and then you'll get something in the future. So it's really more of a partnership from day one to understand what you're delivering and to iterate upon that. Okay, Q&A. And feel free to post questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer anything at all. So how has the use of Tableau changed/influenced the way I do my job? So I use Tableau on a daily basis. I've been using it for 6 or 7 years now. And I would say the biggest thing that I've seen is the impact that Tableau can have on organizations that aren't used to visualizing data. It's automating manual reports. So my current client that I'm at, I'm working in the HR department, and they have these reports that take probably 10 hours a month to prepare. And I took what they're connecting into, connected Tableau, created a dashboard, added filters, and made it so it's going to automatically refresh for them on a monthly basis. And instead of having to piece together a PowerPoint to send off to their leadership, they now simply send them a link to a dashboard. And it's automatically refreshed, and they now have 10 hours back every single week. So now they can focus on more strategic things versus just prepping data and pulling slides together. So I would say Tableau has a huge impact for automation of a lot of things that are currently manual. And you'd be surprised how much is still manual across all the Fortune 500 companies. How do you approach a new project in Tableau? Focusing on chart types, dashboard layout, and use of story points. So from a chart type perspective, it's really starting with the wireframing. What's the story we're telling here? Then I write down all the KPIs and dimensions. I figure out, do some of these logically make sense to group together on the same dashboard? You start seeing themes emerge when you start grouping things out on paper. And that allows you to sort of tell that story of what's most important on that first dashboard. You don't want to overload it. Otherwise, it's just, where do I focus my attention? I know Tableau recommends that you don't put more than 5 worksheets on a single dashboard. It's a best practice for performance sake, but it's also visually taxing on the end user. So make sure that you don't overload your dashboards. I'm sure we've all seen dashboards with 30 sheets on them, different scorecards everywhere. What are you focusing on? So just make sure that you're actually telling that story, but not overloading anybody. From a use of story points perspective, I would say we probably don't use story points that frequently. We do annotate charts. So oftentimes if there's a large spike somewhere, we'll add an annotation in Tableau to call out, oh, okay, so there was an acquisition that's why there's a huge spike in hiring here, because those employees actually came from a different company. So that's not something that the abnormalities that you see, you can quickly call out using annotations. From a story point perspective, just your dashboard can tell that story. You can add descriptive text into your titles. that walk the user through that story. But I have not seen the Tableau story feature used too widely in most companies. What is a type of chart or a technique that you love in Tableau and that I repeatedly use? So bar charts literally answer, I would say, 85 to 90% of the calling for charts. You're looking at data dimensionally, and you're seeing how long those bars are, and you can quickly see by sorting data what's the highest one or what's the one that floats to the top. So if you picture like a pie chart with 20 slices on it, it's very difficult to discern the sizes. It's tough to put labels on pie charts, so it's really impossible to use and read. So now when you put that same information in a descending bar chart, you know immediately what the largest slice in that pie was, and now you can definitely get a lot more information out of it. When I see bubble charts and things like that, it just kind of makes me shake my head, because professionally we rarely use those bubble charts. It's not a best practice to analyze data. So don't be afraid to use bar charts and line charts. Just those things they quickly allow you to see what you're trying to convey, in your information versus a large orange circle. So just keep that in mind. So within marketing or PR majors, will Tableau be useful in those jobs? So that's a good question. I mean, if you work in any business, data is going to be used. So it doesn't matter what department you're in, really. Data is everywhere. So in marketing specifically, you could think of Google Analytics or Google Trends. Those things are definitely used all the time to measure campaign effectiveness. What's the ROI of a given campaign overall? Should we do it again? Should we tweak things? So I would say, like sales funnels, for example, are great to build in Tableau, allowing you to see where folks are dropping off, as well as overall campaign effectiveness, which allows you to get laser focused on targeting your customers. When does Tableau come in handy in the consulting world? I would say it makes traditional PowerPoints look really bad because it's so good. It's so good at conveying information and having it be interactive. I've seen so many senior leaders that are used to PowerPoints. I come in and demo a dashboard, and I click on something. They're like, "What just happened? Like, what is this black magic? This shouldn't be happening." And they could actually drill into like a given state on a map and see how performance was across different KPIs. And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, how about this particular city? And then this one," and it really gets those questions coming. And these are things that they would otherwise never have an answer to, or have to wait 2 weeks for someone to analyze something. Whereas now they can analyze things in real time and start making decisions in real time versus missing all these things that are occurring. So it definitely allows you to tell a prettier story and convey information much easier. How should you present all elements of one question in a single story page? I would say illustrate the answer to the question by breaking it out, really understanding the why of the dashboard. You could think of it like writing an essay. What's the point? What's the summary that everyone doesn't want to read the whole thing, can quickly see at the top, and then you go to the next level down, which is sort of the meat of the dashboard. If the summary wasn't enough, they dive into that, and then you can get even more granular. So maybe they just want a couple rows of data at the bottom, and that gives you the real detail that wraps it all up. Excel versus Tableau. Which one do you prefer to use? I think they're very different tools. So Excel is more quick and dirty calculations or putting data into a format that's consumable by Tableau. And Tableau is really where you want to report and really analyze information visually. Excel is great for just calculating information quickly. It's not something that is going to be persistent because you can't easily share Excel. You got to send it over email and then it's immediately out of date. Whereas in Tableau, you publish to a centralized server, you connect to the same data set. Everyone's looking at the same data at the same time versus Excel where it's like, oh, that's last week's copy, or that copy is missing this or this. So it's completely different, but definitely Tableau for sure. What is the most interesting data set you've worked with, or which project was the most enjoyable for you? I would say that call center project that I was on, that lasted about 2 years. We went across different parts of the U.S. to different call centers, worked with the people on the front lines to understand what was most impactful for them, and really showcasing the high performers of those organizations that otherwise would have been looked over. So when you actually have the data and you're managerial chain can see how well you're performing and you're standing out, like you're going to move. Your data helps you get promoted quickly because you're killing it and you have proof now. And maybe folks that can use more help from these high performers now have a path and a plan that can be coached to improve their own skills versus having it, like I said earlier, just be a black box. So really unlocking the potential of all these people that otherwise wouldn't have been discovered. When working alongside colleagues who are all skilled in data visualization, how can you differentiate yourself in the workplace? I would say just constantly be open to critique. Ask your peers, what do you think of this? How would you have done something differently? Not something where everyone's in it for themselves. Just work collaboratively. Check out Tableau Public for inspiration. There's tons of things that you can check out there. It's completely free. You can download workbooks and see how these experts created them. And some of these people are super artsy. Like I don't have the skills to create some of the dashboards that these folks make out there. It's almost like a storybook. It's crazy. But really, learn what works for you and just get really good at it. And you will naturally. Is there a specific field of study or career that Tableau would most thrive in or would have the highest chances of becoming popular? I would say anywhere, really. I mean, data is the new oil. Wherever data is being used and decisions are being made, Tableau will always have a very, very important seat at that table. So I think really it's only going to continue to evolve and become more and more important over time. What is one feature that Tableau does not offer that you wish it did? Better formatting options. The more I've used Tableau, the more I've grown to kind of hate their developers for not taking feedback into consideration. It's not easy to format dashboards. It's very nuanced, very technical. You can't just copy a worksheet, for example, and have it just show up next to the other worksheet on the dashboard. You have to create a brand new one, apply different filters to it and all that sort of thing. So there's not an easy way to do that, so I wish they fixed that. I think it would also be really cool if Tableau released some sort of functionality where it had industry standard KPIs that you can quickly pull onto a dashboard. What's relevant for insurance versus healthcare, and just have a pick list and how things are calculated, just so there's sort of that dictionary of potential KPIs that you use across the board. That'd be really cool. All right, before I go to my last slide, were there any questions in the chat? So how long did it take you to become comfortable and confident? I would say probably at least 2 years until you're completely comfortable with it, and that's using it on a regular basis, just because there's so many nuances using the tool. But I mean, as long as you're working with someone that is more senior that can help troubleshoot and support you in your learning journey, it shouldn't take that long. But I would say if you're going to be out there independent, at least 2 years. The most effective way of learning Tableau is just get your hands dirty. You can watch training videos, that's great and all, but plug into a data set that's interesting to you and just try to make something amazing out of it. Play around with it, see if others can use the dashboard. Because I've created dashboards before where folks are like, what do I do? This filter's not working, or I expected this to happen. So get that real-time feedback from your colleagues and your peers, because you often have a blind spot that you wouldn't even see that someone else will notice on your behalf, and you can just go ahead and fix that. Since you are third-party consultants, how do companies ensure that the data they share with you is kept secret? We sign NDAs with all of our clients. We can't disclose any client names unless they give us permission to. Obviously, I have access to very sensitive data, so we make sure there's legal documentation in place that protects both the client as well as the consulting firm.
Doesn't look like it. Rob, do you typically use blending versus connecting?
Don't blend. Don't blend your data.
Okay, so you're joining and
yeah. Make sure that before you bring data into Tableau, join it within Tableau's data source editor. Try not to blend data, because when you're blending your data in Tableau, it's at different levels of aggregation. So you can't slice your data the same way across the data source, which can be very frustrating for end users as well as the person building the workbook, because the numbers won't add up at certain levels of granularity, just because it's not row level. It'll start showing duplicate data for different dimensions, and it's not a best practice to blend. If you have no other option, that's fine. You can blend your data, but for productionalization of a dashboard, you would never blend.
Yeah, to normalize the data and join.
Yeah, Tableau is not an ETL tool. Tableau is a tool that it needs to connect to that perfect data set. you shouldn't be really joining in Tableau either if you have a team that could put this data into a centralized warehouse for you to plug into. You wouldn't want to pass off that performance burden onto Tableau. It slows things down. It's harder to maintain. So you'd be much better off having your data reside elsewhere and just connecting to Tableau to that data.
Great, thank you. And then what are these links that you have?
All right, so this first one is my LinkedIn page, so feel free to connect with me. The next one is my YouTube channel. So I push out videos pretty frequently, so feel free to check out that channel. Here's my email, and my website is tableautraininghq.com. Feel free to browse around the blog there and reach out with any questions.